Hello and welcome to Sessions with Judith John. Please do contact me by leaving a message on the WhatsApp number flashing on the screen, or you can just drop a mail at sessionswithjudithjohn@gmail.com for any queries related to learning or teaching of English. So in today's session, I'm going to talk about how to teach the lesson Should Wizard Hit Mommy? This lesson is as per the CBSE syllabus English Core Class 12 Vistas textbook lesson number 5. So this one is especially for the teachers of English. Now if you look at this lesson, Should Wizard It Mommy? Many teachers think that this is like, primary school story. How are we going to do this with class 12 children who are already 16 or 17 years old? So this is not about just a small story for small children. It has a lot of things in depth. The value and message is strong. And it provides a lot of analysis that has to go with it related to the characters and what the author is actually trying to convey. So here you can see I have kind of put it for 3 days. This is just an outline to help you prepare your lesson well. So on day 1, you can go with the author first, talk about the author, and you can, of course, even ask the students to find out a little more about the author, Google and find out about John Updike, the author. And then you can go on with discussion, open discussion as motivation always, and it's interaction with students, it's making students speak and them learning English. It's not about the teacher speaking. We all know that all English teachers can speak English very well. So ensure that your class students, the students in the class, they speak. So always offer open discussion, brainstorming, and so the title of the story, you can just start with the title of the story where you can ask a lot of questions. Why is the title this? Should Wizard Hit Mommy? What do the students think about it? Okay, so sure the students will come up with a lot of answers that will pave way for better discussion. You can of course use the raise hand option, and if you're doing an online class, you can use the chat box as well. Then you can go on with, see, this is the way, day 1. I've tried to put it on a bigger thing because screen, so that it will be easier for you to see clearly, where I've put all the 3 days together on that screen there. So this is the way you can go. And day 2, you can start with the introduction of the characters in the story. We all know it's Jack, Claire, and Joan, and Bobby. If it is an offline class, you're right there in the physical classroom. You can use the chalkboard to tell the story. You can ask the students to read the story at home and come and ask them to do the storytelling as well. The introduction of the vocabulary is very important actually. As now you go up the textbook, you can see how I teach. Actually, this lesson is already uploaded on YouTube where I teach the lesson. So you can also see the sample of how I'm teaching. Although I have put it all together within just a few minutes, you can spread it out to these 3 days the way as shown here with the plan, using guessing and reference of online or printed dictionary, the way it's available, the kind of class you're taking, depending on the kind of class you're taking. Then the introduction of the characters in the story that Jack tells his daughter. Now this is a story within a story. So you can first part you can introduce only Jack, Claire, and Joan and Bobby, and then the next part you can go to the story that he tells, where he talks about his the Roger skunk, an animal that he creates every time, and the mother skunk, father skunk, the wise old owl who comes in, and the wizard. Okay, so reading of the story can be given as an offline activity, and instead you can ask the students to come. You can give it as homework. You can ask them to sit in groups and read, or even have it as a class reading. It may take a long time. Instead, you can offer to do it as a group work or an individual work to read it at home. Come here to the class and tell story. Okay. You can also use a, I don't know, chart, chalkboard or PPT if you can. Then on day 3, you can go with the storytelling session. You've already asked the students to read and come, so you can have a storytelling. Teacher can always give the inputs where students are missing or getting stuck, or you can encourage other students to come forward. So it's not one child telling the whole story. You can ask the child to tell the story, and maybe after 3 minutes stop and tell another child to continue the story. And then you can even ask the class students as to what points the other children have missed that in the story which they have observed. So all this will actually pave way for better discussion and more interaction, and encouraging the students to speak in the class, speak in English. And that's what the English teacher's duty is basically. With inputs and also probing questions, and you can always ask, how is that, or why do you think it's this, and don't you think you have missed something? So these are the kind of questions you can ask in between to keep the class going and involve the students participating in the learning process. And the open discussion on the moral question that the story raises. Now that part is very important. The story by itself, I think any child can easily tell the story after reading the text. The story of Jack and Claire and their children, and then the story of course, Roger Skunk. But why this story in class 12? Now that analysis, leading to the justification of the title as to why the title itself is a question, should wizard it mommy? Okay, so all this should be an open discussion in the class with brainstormings. Make sure that you involve all the students. Don't keep asking the same students again, and try and ask the students who are not really getting interested. So when you call out their names, they will also participate. They will know that now my teacher is going to ask me, so I got to be attentive. So with this, the characters, not only the characters in the story and what the characters are going to try and teach us. So it's the moral question that is raised about parenting, okay, about always keeping one's identity, which is very important. Like here in this story, the skunk's identity is its foul smell. So each one, and the rose has its own smell. Now everyone has to be taught that, and the child cannot imitate and try to be like somebody else. That each one has their originality. Okay, and then you can go last after all this is over with the assignment. Even often a whole discussion with clear instructions. Make them mark in their textbooks what you want them to do, or you can give clear instructions in your online where you're platform where you're giving your tasks or homework, where you're explaining. And in the class, make sure that every child is sitting with a pencil and the textbook open, so that they will be marking, when you're doing the vocabulary, the words, when you're marking out the important lines, the names of the characters, the story in short. You can always use a mind map like this one. Now this is a vague one, of course, of the chalkboard that I have used in the classroom. So it's something like this where I've talked about and I've put in columns. Mind map is always a very easy way of teaching and explaining to the children. Also catch on very easily. They will not forget something like this, what they see on the board. You can also ask them to copy down what you're doing on the board into their notebooks or their textbook, wherever they can mark out. Like here we are talking about identity, we are talking about pretense, the world of pretense, where Jack is talking about his wife and his daughter. Like she pretends, the daughter pretends like the mother, the way the mother pretends in parties and all that. Okay, and then the adult's view and the child's view. Now that's again very important. We mix up everything and we expect the child to be just like an adult and understand everything. So here that is a clear demarcation. The story talks about how the child looks at the world and what the child knows, and of course a little bit about good parenting. And then I put in this in the next column the characters in the story, in the main story, the Jack who's telling the story to his daughter and all that. And in the last column about the Roger Skunk part of the story and the characters involved in that. So you can do something like this. You can always do another mind map like this one, which I have done, where we are talking about individuality and identity. One's identity, which is important. This is the message that Jack wants to give his daughter as well. Okay, so you can use these kind of things on the board to write and show if you're not using any other AV8. If you're using an audiovisual aid, you're preparing a PPT, then you can do the same over there. You can show that. In fact, word meanings also, and you can see the sample of how I have done this lesson, where I use the online textbook, the virtual textbook, to mark out and show the children easily. So as and how we do, they will also be marking in their textbook. That is what we want them to do. All right. So I hope this will be very useful for teachers looking for how to go about this particular English lesson. This is one sample that I'm giving you. You can also see the lessons that have been taught by me online to follow on how to really teach English lessons and make them very interesting for the students. Hope you have enjoyed my session. Keep watching Sessions with Judith John for more inputs and tips to excel and stand out not only as a student but even as an English teacher. You can contact me with your doubts and queries in the comment box or the WhatsApp number that is flashing on the screen. You can mail me at sessionswithjudithjohn@gmail.com for any kind of assistance and interesting discussion in English. So looking forward to more. Remember, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And every English teacher is that. So all the best. Enjoy teaching.